welcome in. We're back for season 2 of the Glue Guys. I'm Landon Lucas. This is my dad, Richard Lucas. And if you weren't with us last season, well, welcome. We're back again after the national championship. I figured, hey, we got to run it back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my first question, though, is you look like you got a nice, cool new microphone and all that. So what's up for Pops? I mean, I didn't get anything. No delivery for me out front. What's going on?
I figured after last year with the national championship, I had to step some things up, and I figured you would follow suit as well. But it looks like you got the same background. You got no mic, no lighting, nothing. So I mean, I must say I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that you didn't hook your Pops up. That's all I'm disappointed. I thought you're the man. This is your deal. I'm just one of the glue guys.
Talk to the field of 68. Okay, we'll give them a call. We'll see what they can do for you.
All right, sounds good. A new season. Let's do it.
Yeah, new season. We got a good episode for you guys today. We're going to be going over this year's Kansas basketball team, previewing a little bit, talking a little bit about the bounce back coming off of the national championship, and seeing, what this new team is going to provide for us. We have our sub in, sub out we're going to go over. We got Tait coming on to join us here in a little bit, and then we're going to finish with our From the Stands with our man Joe. So you ready to go? You ready for this new season?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's get started with our first sub in, sub out. We might as well just go straight to it and get right into the hard-hitting questions, because I want to know something, okay?
Okay.
Do you sub in or sub out? Not sub in or sub out. Do you sub in or sub out on this? Okay.
You're starting off horribly, by the way.
Oh my God. Well, thanks.
Should we just restart?
No, it's not that.
Okay. All right. Go for it.
Come on now. All right. Sub in or sub out. Winning last year's championship will have a negative impact on this year's basketball team.
Okay. So with this sub in, sub out, I'm never ever understanding
not that complicated. Come on.
But I think I'm in on this one, if I'm understanding it. My understanding is that if I'm subbing in here, it's the fact that I do think that winning that national championship is going to be negative on the team. Now, let's clarify negative a little bit, right? I don't think it's a situation where it's going to now make them a horrific team. Okay, so I'm not in that category. But what I am in the category is that we're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. Well, in Mitch Lightfoot's case, 29-year-olds, right? But we're dealing with young men, and they've had now since April to now, whether they are returners or whether they're new incoming athletes, they've had a lot of months of people just patting them on the back and, saying, oh man, you guys are the best. You're so good. You are so good. And so I think that unfortunately that can bring complacency and apathy a little bit. And the fact that I'm a little bit worried that eye on that prize, because you know how it is, just to make a Final Four is massively important. Yep. But to see Mass Street look like it does when you win a national championship, that's at a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. And so when you get that, it's almost kind of like a day after Christmas feel. You're just like, okay, now what? So what are we striving for? Now, again, I know they're trying to get to that, but the reason why I do think it can have a negative impact is simply they're young men dealing with all of those accolades, which they all deserved it. Mm-hmm. But I feel that it can sometimes lose that edge a little bit. And I'm telling you, the Big 12 is going to be loaded this year. Mm-hmm. So I worry a little bit about the hangover effect of winning a national championship.
I'm a little surprised you went with that, especially, I figured you might go with the pressure or something like that. But the hangover effect, I do believe it's real. But I'm not sure, at Kansas, there's always going to be that motivation. There's always going to be that something to prove, which is leading me into why I'm going to sub out on this. I don't think it's going to have a negative impact. I actually think it may have a little bit of a positive impact. And the reason why is because if you look at parts of last year, something that was missing a little bit was that fear of Kansas. You remember when we would go into a few games last season and it just didn't feel like teams feared Kansas. It wasn't the same as it was in years past. And I think that was kind of due to you had the COVID seasons, with no crowds. You had some lackluster performances here and there. Getting blown out by Kentucky didn't help at home, which should not happen. But there were a few times where it just felt like, teams didn't fear us the same way. And now I believe that changes a little bit. You have the reigning national champions coming in, and it's the University of Kansas, let alone, to your building or coming into Allen Fieldhouse to face them. And I think that helps not only for the confidence of our players, but to kind of kill a little bit of the confidence of other teams. And so I'm going to look at this as a positive. I'm not too worried that it's going to hurt them as far as their hunger. They're going to be hungry to get back there. You only have really two guys from that last team that played significant minutes. So you got a lot of hungry players. You got transfers coming in, freshmen coming in that are going to want to prove something. It's not like they're returning, a ton of their players from that team last year. And so I look at this as a positive, and I look at this as something that should bring back some of that fear. You know what I'm talking about? That fear of Kansas that seemed to be missing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when you could look down at the other team warming up, and you knew you had 10 points before the game even started. So I hear you. I guess the only thing I would say is that you talked about the fact that that fear has come back, but the problem is that most of the people that did the killing is gone. And so now you start going, this is just a bunch of new guys that, and the ones that are coming back are not the main focus. Now, so don't get me wrong. If those same guys were across there that had just won a national championship, that's different. You talk about football. Georgia returned most of their team. They did lose a lot, but they returned most of their team. So you look across, you see the same quarterback that just won a national championship and the same, receivers. That's where that fear comes from. I just don't know if there's enough returning to really give you that fear factor that you're looking for.
It's still Kansas. You still see the name across the jersey. I'm telling you, it's going to add something.
Okay.
But let's transition a little bit. I'm curious, you spent some time as a coach, and this is a tough task. You do have to manage how this team bounces back from a national championship and then transitions into a brand new season where everybody is starting 0-0, and you have to build it from the ground up. And, recently I saw an interview where Jalen Wilson was talking about how his transition was late night, hanging the banner, getting the rings, making that transition into, okay, it's a new year. That was a little late for me. I thought that it might happen a little earlier, but I understand because that was when the banner went up and whatnot. As a coach, what are you doing, and what type of approach are you taking to making this team have that smooth transition into a new season where they have to start from scratch?
Well, I think you telling me about him at late night transitioning, that kind of leads a little credence to what I was just talking about. The fact that it is hard for young men to move from that cloud into the reality of, hey, we've got to roll up the sleeves and get after it. But I think as a coach, it's difficult to try to mitigate that type of temptation to just kind of stay feeling like you can you're world beaters now. But I do think if I'm a coach, the way I would probably handle this is the same way I would handle if I walked in at halftime and we were up by 20 and we were at West Virginia and it's a raucous crowd out there. And I would look at each one of those players in there and I would say, what's the score? 0-0, right? Yep. It's 0-0. And so I think that I would probably use some of that same type of mentality. Like, yes, we deserve this. We worked our tails off and we raised a banner. We've done everything. We've got to the pinnacle of what this level of basketball is all about. but there's a whole row of
Mhm.
new teams that are going to come in ready to take on the champ. And you talked about the fact that it puts that fear in it, but it could also go the other way, right? Where you start going, geez, the whole hunted versus being the hunter, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? And so you got people going like, hey, I'm playing against the national championship on
Yeah, but
national
it's
TV.
Kansas.
I want to come after you.
Yeah, yeah, it is Kansas though. You get everybody's best shot regardless. But
I guess
I
that's true.
understand 100% what you're saying, and I do think it's a good analogy to that up 20 at halftime type
Right,
mentality because you have to kind of approach it like that's in the past. We have to move on.
right,
We have to be bring our A game as if it were 0-0 because it actually is in this case. And you have to
right.
take that approach that that's in the past. We got to move on to this new
Yeah, you got to play.
season.
You got to play with a sense of urgency, just
Mhm.
like you are. I mean, you can't assume that your Ochai is going to catch passes and,
Yeah.
and McCormick's going to do his thing inside. There's a whole new season, and you got to start from scratch.
Well, speaking of those guys, I want to go over them real quick and
Okay.
get your opinion on whose loss is going to make the biggest impact on this year's team. So
Okay.
obviously the main one, Ochai, All-American. You
Right.
got Christian Brown, David McCormick inside, one of the best players of the Final Four.
Right.
Mitch Lightfoot, who was there for 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah,
And
as a matter of fact, he was in school when I was in college.
yeah,
So
it seemed
yeah,
like it, right?
that's
And then Remy Martin, who, thanks to him,
right.
they won a few games in the tournament.
Yes.
So, I'm asking you, who do you think presence is going to impact this team, or loss of that presence is going to impact this year's team moving forward?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because they each bring a certain skill set, right, to the team. That's why you take these pieces and you put them together. I think that although that it's kind of the obvious factor here in terms of who is that person who is the alpha, right? I mean, you got a lot of dogs out there, but there's only really one alpha dog from last year, in my opinion. And that was Ochai. He was, you have to remember that even in the games when he didn't score a ton, the opposition had to figure out what to do. I mean, I can imagine that if I was in the scouting room and as an opponent and the scout team, what the scout team's doing the whole time. Where's Ochai? Oh, he's going to come off this screen. It's going to be watch. And so we're spending hours trying to figure out how do we stop one of the best players in the country. And so what that does is that frees up the opportunities and the time and the efforts and all that for the other guys on the team. So I think, to me, not having that kind of a presence is massive. And then the other piece to it is there's the on the court, but there's also the off the court. I think, he was on the Glue Guy show with us. You can tell that he's a leader. He came back with a mission. And I think that kind of all through the team. I mean, that flowed through the team because it starts with him. And so when you miss that type of leadership, I think that it's going to be difficult to try to replace. So on the court and off the court, he was the man.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. I believe that he should have been the National Player of the Year, obviously
Right.
All-American. He was a big part of that championship run, and I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I'm going to go a little different, though, and go with Christian Brown as my player who the team's going to miss the most. And the reasons for that is just his energy that he brought to those games. He brought such a presence to some of those games that made a huge impact. And I think that this team is going to struggle to replace that. If you look at their returning guys, DeJuan Harris didn't seem to have that kind of, dog outward. He was as far as his play, but not like, talking trash and getting the team into it and stuff. And, Jalen Wilson can be and may be able to step up to that, but it's still a big hole to replace. And he brought that presence to Kansas. And it's one of those guys that you just love to have on your team. And I'll say something. I've watched a few of his highlights from his time in the NBA so far, and he's bringing that same presence to an NBA team playing against and guarding LeBron James. So if you talk about somebody that's really capable of changing kind of the culture of a team, even after, I think it was his first game in the NBA, the coach gave him like their, I don't know what they call it, their like chain, their defensive chain, their dog chain or something for his performance. That shows the impact he's making at an NBA level. And I think that that's going to be missed on the Kansas Jayhawks team, next year. And I believe that they're going to struggle to find that maybe early on until some guys emerge a little bit. But that's something that you just love to have on your team, and something that I think every team needs a player like him.
Right. No question about it. I can tell you that's why Coach Self gets paid all of the big bucks, because he's got to navigate this, right? I mean, the loss of an Ochai, the loss of a McCormick, and a loss of Brown as well. I mean, these are all massive impact. They're going to make massive impacts to, to any team that they're on. So now they're gone. And so now what is the question? What happens from here?
Well, that's why we're going to bring on Matt Tait, because he's going to fill us in on now what, because we need to learn a little bit about this recruiting class and a little bit from the inside from him. So we're going to go ahead and bring on Matt Tait. Matt, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. 1 second. I think my dad's camera is messed up or something. Dad, can you try? No, always something, right? Dad, do you have some technical difficulties on your side?
Yeah,
he was just fine.
Here we go.
Oh my God. Oh man, is this your Halloween costume?
I have no idea who you're talking to.
Is this how you scare the kids that come for candy?
That's it. That's why I never know why no kids ever come to our house anymore. It's so weird. That's why we save money on candy every year.
I was going to say you were too good looking for the camera, but then you showed up with the face mask. It's the opposite.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Halloween, man. How are you?
You too, man. We did some pumpkins today, and we're ready to roll. So yeah, it's great. How are you guys?
Good. I see you. You're all big time now on College Game Day and stuff. I see you all over the place.
Right?
That was pretty cool. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. I've seen him before.
Oh man, they made me look all right. I was happy with that. My claim to fame on that one though is I did about 30 minutes on camera with them, and they used way more than I would have thought. I mean, sometimes you do 30 minutes and they use 20 seconds, and so I kept watching it, and there I was again. It was crazy. But Travis Goff did 30 minutes after me. They didn't use him at all. So
wow, hey, that's pretty impressive. What do you feel about this? What do you feel about this football team and this year? Has it been fun? I'm sure it has. Being there in Lawrence and seeing this resurgence.
Oh, for sure, it's so different. You know how long I've done this, and how long the football thing was Groundhog Day, right? So it's, you try to see if there's some reason to get excited, and you build it up a little bit, and then you see maybe week 1, week 2, definitely by week 3 or 4, you're like, oh, okay, well, late night, let's move on, right? And so this year it's been busier for sure, but it's so much fun to just do something different, cover something different, and the staff, the kids, they're a great group, man, they really are. So it's cool to see, and obviously the fans are eating it up. So they got a little work to do left still, and it's not going to be easy. But they're back where people need them to be, relevant and competitive, and there's a lot of good things ahead. That's for sure. It looks pretty cool.
Hey Matt, I got a quick question on that. And I could be completely wrong on this, but I have this sneaky suspicion that the head coach is going to be a pretty hot commodity come the end of this season.
Yes,
What's the likelihood that he's around at Kansas next year?
I think it's pretty high. A couple of reasons. I think they're going to do everything they can to keep him. Right. I mean, he is in every way a perfect fit from a grinder mentality, from a cultural standpoint. He's happy here. The connection between him and his players, him and the administration, him and the fans. I mean, it's all really, really taken taken off early, right? And so they don't want to go find another guy. So, if somebody comes and offers them $10 million, they probably can't match that, but they're going to try to get close, and then they're going to try to say, hey, so here's what our number is, but we can also give you this, 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 and this.
Right.
And you're on your way here, right? You're heading the right direction. Do you want to really go start over again? And maybe he does. I mean, the bottom line is, I think Nebraska and Wisconsin, both jobs are open or, interims right now, but those are definitely his top two jobs, and the fact that they're both open the same year, it's like, if he's here next year, if he doesn't take those or doesn't get offered either of those or whatever, he's at Kansas the rest of the time, because he's not going to go jump to some random school. I mean, those have a connection to him, and if KU can dodge those or outbid those or whatever it ends up being,
right.
I think he's here for the long haul. So it's 5-0 was fun, and I know the administration loved it, and they filled that place and got a lot of exposure. But it was also almost like just a little too good, because then they started getting uncomfortable. Like, oh no, what's happening here? So, but yeah, he's a great coach, and a really good fit for Kansas, because he's no frills, he's not glitz and glamour, he's not look at me on a poster. He's
right.
I just want to coach football and win and try to put a good product on the field. And they're doing all of those things right now. So pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and that game day experience and what they did, early on this season. It was so fun to watch, and he's done great with that program. Everybody involved has done great with it. But this is a basketball podcast, and we are still a basketball school as well. Let's not forget. And the basketball season is starting here pretty soon. We spoke a little bit about the transition from last year to this year, but we want to know, we're trying to get up to date on these freshmen and the impact they're going to make. And so I'm going to go over real quick for those who don't know the incoming newcomers. We have Grady Dick, MJ Rice, Wilder Evans, Kevin McCullough, Ernest Uday, and Zuby. I'm not going to try to finish his last name. Out of those players, who do you think? Am I missing anybody first off? Or is that everybody?
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Who do you think out of those players is poised to make the biggest impact on this year's team?
Yeah, for me, it's probably Grady, just because he shoots it so well and he's a great athlete. And I think he's maybe ahead of all of them a little bit right now in terms of his readiness. This is a kid that's played big time high school basketball with Sunrise Prep. Sunrise Christian. And then of course he was on a USA 3-on-3 team that played overseas. And I mean, he kind of made a name for himself there too, to be honest. I mean, it's 3-on-3 basketball, and that's there's nowhere to hide out there. And he was cutting down the lane looking like he was Christian Brown. And so he definitely opened some eyes there. He was terrific at Sunrise Christian. He's been sort of earmarking this time and this moment for the past 3-4 years. I mean, he's a Jayhawk for life. And I just think he's ready to make that jump. And I think because of his familiarity with the program, he understands it a little better. He knows what's coming. He doesn't know all that's coming, because he's still a freshman playing for the first time. And up to this point, or up till maybe 2 months ago, Coach Self and he had some pretty good interactions most of the time. I would imagine he's had some less than good interactions with Coach Self in practice since then, and maybe opened his eyes to, oh, wow, he can get on me a little bit too. But that stuff doesn't faze him at all. He's one of these kids, very, very serious when he's out there and locked in. But he shoots it so well. I mean, he's got that high release. He's 6'8" already to begin with. And I think they need outside shooting. And so I think he's probably at the top of that list. But man, Ernest, you mentioned Ernest. Ernest is not far behind because they need somebody at the 5 to really emerge. And it's probably not fair to ask a freshman to do that. You know that as well as anyone. That's a hard thing to do. And, he's probably not quite there, but he's going to play and he's going to have big moments. And he tries to dunk everything like Udoka did. And he's a great lob catcher. And you can make a living in the Bill Self offense if you're a lob finisher, right? And And I think he's got the right mentality, the right motor. He's a sprint the floor, run to the rim kind of guy. So I like those two guys, but also, I mean, all four of them should play. You know, Wilder's a walk-on, and he's a great story. His family's KU people too. But Zuby, he's athletic. He can run to the rim too. He's ahead of where they thought he would be. And then MJ Rice, you know, maybe right now he's not quite there. I think they say he's tied up in his mind a little bit. You know, he's just overthinking it. Yeah, and that's okay. But you know, Coach Self's big on the kid that he is today is not even close to what you'll see in February. And so he might be one of those guys that's kind of slow to come around, and then all of a sudden he flips that switch whenever it does happen. And you know, he could be – the guy is a 3-level scorer. He's not a great outside shooter, but he can knock down that shot enough to have people respect it. And he's physical. He's tough. He's one of those dudes that you know, in fact, in the first scrimmage, he was he played in that summer scrimmage, and he showed up, I think, at 4 a.m. His first day on campus. His travel just kind of got wonky, and next thing you know, it's 4 a.m. And so the camp scrimmage was at like 3 that afternoon or whatever. And he showed up, and he had something like 26 points or something.
Oh, wow.
And that was big for me, because up to that point, I had kind of thought, well, this is Grady's spot, right? And then in that game, he bullied Grady a little bit, especially in transition and going to the rim and things like that. So he's got a little bit more of that ready-made body, ready-made mentality, but they're all going to help. I really think they're all going to play. I think they're all going to help. And you know, that's a good class. There's no doubt about it.
So when you start talking about, I mean, and before you came on, we had some discussions about the fact that, you know, you got a team that has some unbelievable players, NBA level players, and you're losing not only a lot of on the court help, but you're losing the dogs, right? The folks that are the off the court as well, who you know, make sure the team is supposed to be is doing what they're supposed to do. And so, you know, naturally every year there's going to be someone who kind of bubbles to the top and is that alpha of the team. Could it be a newcomer that potentially could be that, or is it just defaulting to like Jalen or something like that? I mean, who do you think will be that person this year?
Yeah, it's Jalen, no question about it. I mean, I really think he was born for this, and I think he was desiring to do it the day he arrived on campus, but he's also smart enough, and his parents raised him the right way to understand that you do have to pay your dues. You do have to wait your turn. And of course, he got hurt his very first year, so that helped sort of slow that down for him, and I think forced him to think a little bit more outside of himself and think, okay, it's a process. I'm going to look big picture down the road, see where I fit in. And that's what he did the last 2 years. I mean, he was a big time part of both of those teams, but it was still somebody else's team. Right. And that's not the case now. This is his squad. DeJuan Harris, same thing. It's their team. DeJuan's just not, he's just not the same personality. He's as good as it gets as a basketball player. His feel, his IQ, as you guys have seen, that's second to none. But Jalen's the one that will say, this is my squad. I'm the face. Look at me. Look at us. Follow me. Let's go. And I'm telling you, he was born for this. And it's really cool to watch because not everybody can wait their turn, you know, and they get out of sorts, and they get while they may know that that's what they have to do, they don't like it. And then that forces them to go a different direction or try to be something they're not. And Jalen's never done that. He stayed true to himself, and he's waited for this moment. And he's a rare dude, man, because he tested the NBA stuff twice and came back twice. I mean, you don't get many guys that do that, but that shows you his maturity. And I think it shows you that he understood, hey, this is a unique opportunity for me. And I think the Kansas thing means a lot to him, the culture, the paying it forward, the passing it down to these young guys, and making sure that they understand what he learned from guys that, you know, were ahead of him. And that goes all the way back. I mean, you know, Landon, you were part of both sides of that, right? Taking that in and then also passing it down. So, he's ready for this. That's the best thing I can say is he's ready. And I think his game is too. But mentally and in terms of what you were talking about, the alpha part, there's no doubt that he's ready. But with him and DeJuan too, it's really cool because their leadership styles, they really complement each other. It's I said this on a podcast the other day, but it's like they're almost like the cop duo in some movie, right? You know, one of them is the guy that'll slide across the hood of the car and jump in the window and just pound the steering wheel and let's go. And the other's just like hold it down, do the right thing, fill out the paperwork, and you know, you can probably guess which is which there. But it's cool to watch them, you know, as starters off of last year's national championship team. It's cool to watch them really gear up for another run and realize that it's on them more than ever now, but they're also not even blinking. They are ready. They believe they've got enough, and they're going to make another run at this thing, and they think they'll be right in the mix. And that's cool to watch.
Well, you've seen so often with, you know, Coach Self, and there's always been that rebuild and that guy that just seems to step up, you know, fill the shoes, fill that role. And he does such a great job, like prepping them for that and then just giving them all the ability to do so and all the confidence to do so. And it just seems like it's just ready-made for Jalen to step into that role this year. And, you know, it's a good analysis you gave. And as far as him and, you know, Harris and how they can complement each other. My question, for you is there's always going to be, and every season, it felt like when I was there, the seasons I've watched since leaving, there's always that point in the season where stuff starts to go wrong. You start questioning, okay, how are we going to fix this? You know, what are we going to do about this? If you're going to project forward to halfway through the season, we're in Big 12, maybe there's a losing streak or maybe something happens. What would you say is the trending topic that KU fans and stuff are going to be trying to figure out as far as how are we going to fix this? What do you think is that unknown that people are going to be searching to try to find an answer for, you know, come middle of the season, January, February?
Sure. Yeah. There's two things really. The first is definitely the 3-point shooting. I mean, they lost a lot, right? I did a story on this the other day. It's like 79.5% of their makes that walked out the door. And of course, Ochai was a big part of that, but CB2 and Remy even, and Jalen Coleman-Lands made 33s last year, you know? So they've got to find a way to, I don't know that they need to shoot it as well, but Coach said the other day, like, we've got to make shots to be good because he doesn't think they're going to score as easily inside or maybe even in transition like that other team did. I mean, Ochai could outrun everybody. Christian would run through everybody. And, you know, right now they don't look to have those two types of guys out there. It could emerge. There's no doubt that there's players that could fill those roles. But right now I think he thinks, you know, we've got to make shots, and he said they'll take more threes than last year's team did. And those kinds of things. So that's a big one, but that probably shows up early, right? I mean, that shows up way earlier than you have to wait until kind of conference. I think the conference thing, this will be perfect for both of you because I think it's really the big man spot. I mean, everybody's wondering who's going to start at the 5 there, and it's a big question, and even Coach is wondering, right? Because he said the other day he's got 4 guys that could play 10 minutes a game. But he'd rather, if that happens, you got 4 guys who aren't happy. He'd rather have one guy play 25 and another who plays 15 and backs him up, and then at least 2 of your 4 are happy. And I thought that was pretty cool because, you know, so many coaches, right, are constantly trying to make everybody happy, it seems like. And it's hard to do, and especially in basketball with one ball and limited minutes and all that stuff. So it's not just now. It's not just who's going to start at the 5 and how that sort of rotation or whatever is going to emerge. But I think the biggest sort of question or Achilles heel is how are they going to score inside? And I think the answer, I'm not a head coach, I'm not a hero, I'm not special, but I think the answer is maybe it isn't one of those 4 guys, but maybe you post Jalen or Kevin McCullough or Grady or somebody like that and throw it down to them and take advantage of their size and strength against a smaller player guarding them or a similar sized player and just let them do their thing. And I don't know that you have to play small to do that. You know, you don't have to have Jalen at the 5 to do that. You could still play with him at the 4 and have one of those bigs out there, but just pull a big away. And of course, you know, coaches I actually asked him about this recently, and he said, well, yeah, we're looking into that for sure. But the big question then is, can our big guys throw it into those guys? You know, are they good enough entry passers to play that way? So I think that's a really intriguing thing about this team and its makeup, because you've seen Jalen. I mean, his lower body, and it's bigger than it was last year. I mean, the dude is really strong, lower body, and you know, he's not as explosive because of it, but it's the strong base, and he can really lean on you and get himself space. And whether that means he spins off you and gets a layup because of it, or you know, just pushes off and shoots a little fadeaway over you. I think he's got that in his game. I don't know how much they'll use it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it becomes a big part of this team.
Well, I can tell you that if there is anybody who can try and figure this puzzle out, it's Coach Self for sure.
Yeah. You got the right guy.
And I can tell you, you know, it could be something where he starts off with some sort of a rotation like you're talking about, with, you know, just kind of mixing with the fours, getting some touches in the post and all that. And then it just slowly starts to, move toward the direction that he really does like. It's just having a big inside. He can just get angles in and throw it over the top. Because I'm telling you, and I kid you not, I remember watching Embiid the summer before he started there. And I told Landon,
different player.
They're going to redshirt him. That's what I literally said. I said, they're going to have to redshirt him because there's just no way. And then by the end of the year, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's pretty dang good. So as far as development goes, I think Coach Self is one of the best in business, right? Yeah. You know, but so I had a question in regards to the league itself. I mean, from what I'm reading and seeing, and again, I haven't really analyzed all of the teams there, but I do know it's going to be a deep year. I mean, there's going to be some really, really highly ranked teams. And so this is not just a cakewalk. Who do you think is it Baylor? Who's the biggest challenger to KU in trying to get another conference championship?
It probably is Baylor. I mean, they're 5th and 6th in the preseason AP poll, or maybe tied for 5th. I think it was. Yeah, that's what it is. I think I had them 5th and 6th in mine, and Baylor's backcourt's just so good, and they're hot right now, right? I mean, they've got their system and their culture and their expectations, and their recruiting's as good as it's ever been, and so they're 2 years removed from winning a title, and Kansas took it from them, right? And so years down the road, it was always, or in the past, it was always somebody took it from Kansas and, well, they're going to go get it back. Well, now Baylor's like, we're going to go get back what we deserve or what we own, And so I think that rivalry has become really cool. It's those two games are automatic every year in Lawrence and in Waco. They're both going to have a big role in deciding who the Big 12 champ is. But you're right. I mean, the league is deep. There was talk sort of at the I think it was Big 12 Media Day, or actually it was probably 2 weeks before that because the poll was already out. But I was talking to some other reporters and stuff, and they were like, I think TCU might be picked to win the league. And they're really good. And you know what's crazy about TCU? They know they're really good. It's not just like they've got Mike Miles, who was the preseason player of the year, and he's a nice player, but they're missing this. No, the rest of those guys know that they're really good. They put it on the national champs last year and actually kind of helped KU figure itself out a little bit. And so, that was an assist, a national championship for TCU. but that's another really good, deep and experienced team. And then it's hard to look at Texas and their talent and think they won't be in the mix. I mean, they just added a couple of really good transfers. They've got a few guys back that were a huge part of a good, tough team. And Chris Beard now, right? All the first year stuff's out of the way. He's got his culture in a little bit, and we know how good of a coach he is. So that's four teams right there that are top 10, top 5 type teams probably all season. Maybe not quite top 5, but definitely top 10, top 15. And then, and you've got some other teams that have plenty of talent too. I mean, you're not even talking about Oklahoma State yet, or who else am I forgetting? Texas Tech and what they do defensively. And it'll always be a question with them. Do they have enough offense? But their defense and their culture it's going to be good enough to beat anybody any given night. I mean, even K-State, man, like their hire, Jerome Tang is a really, really good hire for them as their new coach, and I like what he's been doing. I think they're going to have to take a year or two to close that gap. But, you know, they added a lot of pieces in terms of transfers and, you know, the way he coaches and his style and his philosophy. I mean, that's not just, you know, K-State's just so far below everybody anymore. And look, again, KU saw that last year. K-State wasn't that last year either. I mean, they had them on the ropes in Manhattan and down 16, and then, oh, by the way, that lesson that they learned and how to fight through that pays off on the national championship Monday night, you know. So K-State's, they've always been in the mix, and you know, so I guess we can name the rest, right? West Virginia, who else am I forgetting? Oklahoma, Iowa State, those three. You know, I really have questions about all three of those teams, but they also have very good coaching and plenty of talent. And with the portal, you know, part of the questions about those teams is, well, they've got some new guys, you know, and they've added some new players, and let's see how that pans out. So, the league's great. It's really cool how much pride all these coaches and really even the teams have in what the Big 12 is. They take great pride in believing and saying that this is the best league in America. And in fact, Jalen wore his national championship ring to Big 12 Media Day in Kansas City. It was the first time he had worn it. They just got it 4 or 5 days earlier, but he hadn't worn it yet. Been sitting in the case in his dorm room, and you know, so he's got it, and I'm talking to him about this, and I'm just assuming it's a flex, right? Like, oh, hey, you know, like, but I asked him about it, and he said, I'll be honest with you, I wore it here because I think these people deserve to see it. Like, there's no way we win the national championship without going through this conference and what all these other teams did to push us and make us ready for that run. And he goes, you get to the Elite Eight, it's just like the Big 12 all over again. And I thought that was really cool. That speaks to that maturity, that being ready for this moment. And, you know, as you're just looking at this dude holding his bling, thinking that that's all he's doing is just showing it off, he's got this whole other deeper meaning behind why it's there with him, and makes me look really shallow. So I appreciated that, but it is cool. And you know, that's a perfect summary of what the Big 12 is all about. And I think it's cool. These guys root for each other. You guys probably heard the story. I think it was might've been in Salt Lake City, in the tournament a few years ago, but Baylor had just lost to Gonzaga in the early game, and KU was playing Auburn, and you know, they got smoked in that game. It was a tough second round game, but Baylor just lost. Season over, right? Like tough loss to obviously a really good Zags team. And Scott Drew comes running down the hall as KU's ready to take the court, and he's pounding on the wall and high-fiving all these guys saying, let's go Big 12, let's go Big 12. I mean, that's cool. That is really cool stuff. And I don't think that's going anywhere. These guys are really tight. And so it'll be a dogfight. You know, we'll ask Coach Self 5 or 6 different times throughout the year, what's the record it's going to take to win it, you know, and all this stuff. And he'll say he hasn't thought about it, and he's thought about it. He knows right now exactly what he thinks it'll take to win. Yeah. And, you know, but his ability to get his team and keep himself in that, it really is such a gauntlet that none of the stuff matters. Don't think about 14-4. Think about 1-0, and you guys know that. But he not only operates that way, he gets his guys to buy into that, and they've done really well at that lately, and forever. I mean, that's why you win as many titles in a row as they've done. So pretty cool stuff, though. It's a great league, and I tell you what, you mentioned Embiid. That was one of the only dudes that I've ever like really had a rooting interest in. I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back, because I wanted to see up close, front row seat to him every night. And then of course he didn't come back, but that's how I feel about the Big 12. I mean, it doesn't matter what city I go to or whatever. I get a great game to cover every freaking night. And it's awesome. It's a great league.
Well, you know, you can have a front row seat to see Joel if you want. They're going to pay $2,000 a night. You can. It's possible.
I can. You're right. Yeah. I'll have to remind you what sports writers make.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this year in the Big 12. I mean, I've seen a lot of projections. A lot of people, you know, think that Kansas may struggle to win it, but I always believe that Kansas has that ultimate X factor, and that's Allen Fieldhouse and Coach Self. And he knows how to win at home. He knows how to take care of business in those games where you aren't supposed to win and you figure out a way to win. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the season. We appreciate you coming on to give us a little bit of a breakdown of the freshmen coming on and your insight. I know that we're just now kind of getting into the flow of Kansas basketball and stuff. So we really appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always great to talk with you guys. Thanks for having me. And we got to mention Kevin McCullough because he's your dude, both of you guys.
Yes,
that is your guy. You've seen him play, but like thinking about him and his skill set playing for Bill Self, it's just a perfect match. And I think he's going to be a big part of the reason that this team is as successful as I think they will be, because he's at home already. He's having the time of his life. He's having fun. And him and Jalen are tight too. So there's already that feeling. It feels like he's, been here for a while. So I think we mentioned almost every other player. So I had to.
No, that's a big one. That's a big one. I liked what he did, at Texas Tech. And I thought that was a big pickup for him. For Coach Self, and fits the system well, and is going to have a huge impact on this team. So good shout out there for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's crazy that it's already here. All of that championship stuff, like the parade, and then just it lingered into the summer, and they're still celebrating it. I mean, it made it feel like there was no off season. It feels like we were just at that parade, but here we go. I think football did that too, right? It felt like, it can't be basketball yet. And here we go, Thursday night with an exhibition game, and then the regular season opener, and then in Indy playing Duke, and then the Bahamas, and then it's on. I mean, it's here, man. It's really crazy, but it should be a great year. Expectations always high, that, but they should be. The fans should expect a monster year, and I think they do, and this group's ready for it. It's cool.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time again, and hopefully we'll get you on again later on in the season and talk a little bit more Kansas basketball.
Sounds great. You guys know where to find me. Thank you.
Right, have a good
Halloween, though. Go easy on it.
Have a good one.
Too.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Well, that was nice to get a chance to get some inside info from Matt. He's around that team. He's at the practices. He's talking to Coach Self. And it's nice to kind of know that Kansas has some firepower coming in to reload. So how did you feel about his analysis of this upcoming season?
Well, even though I didn't know all of the actual names of some of the players and their skill sets and some of that stuff, we'll start to learn about that as the season goes. But you also always do know that KU is going to bring in firepower, right? I mean, there's under Coach Sal, there's rarely going to be a circumstance where he's opening up the covers and it's bare.
Right.
Know what he's going to do, right? So I figured it was going to be somebody who was going to be a big time player, big time athlete. Now it just takes some time for them to understand him and his system and the things that he's trying to accomplish, but culture-wise and all of that, KU is going to be just fine there.
Yeah. Well, let's finish with our From the Stands segment. We're going to bring on our man, Joe. We're going to ask him a little bit about, his thoughts from a fan's perspective on this transition to this new season. And we're going to go over the preseason schedule a little bit. So let's go ahead and bring on Joe and talk to him for a little bit. Joe, man, what's up? How are things going for you?
I'm doing real well. I'm basking in, the glow of winning a national championship.
Yes. How has that been? How's the celebrations been? Have you already moved on to the next season yet? Or are you still living in the past? What are your emotions like right now with that?
Past, I'm living in the present. I'm living in the future. I'm doing it all. It is funny. It's like the first basketball season in a very long time where I'm not really, counting down each day, chopping at the bit to get there, just because last year was so special and you really want to soak that all in.
And don't forget that we also had a top 25 football team to keep you entertained for a little while too.
College game day in Lawrence. What's going on? It's perfect.
Well, I don't know if you had a chance to see the Glue Guys show with Coach Self on it, but he talked about how he was I think he said he might have been drunk for two weeks after. I wasn't sure if you were somewhere close to that, or was it a little longer, a little less?
Yeah, let's go with a little long. Wink, wink. I think I clipped that record.
Yeah, well, I'm wanting to to move on, I know we talked about this earlier on in the show. Like Jalen Wilson was talking about, late night was his transition, getting the banner hung, the rings. Now we have a brand new season. Every team starting, 0-0, and we're going to try to go back to back. So I want to quickly, you may already know this preseason schedule, but I want to quickly go over it because I'm curious kind of what your thoughts are on where this team finishes going into Big 12. So some of the big games on the schedule in preseason, we got Duke in the Champions Classic, always a good way to start the season. They're ranked number 7 in the country. Seton Hall, which has the coach from, I'm blanking out on where he just coached, but he just led the St. Peter's coach. Yeah. He's now at Seton Hall, so he's going to be trying to bring that program back. You got Mizzou on the road, I believe, which is going to be a fun one. Indiana, who's number 13 in the country at home. Harvard, and then you got that tournament over Thanksgiving, the Bahamas, where you got NC State, Dayton, Wisconsin, USC, BYU, Tennessee, and Butler. So those are some of the big games, in this preseason. I want to get your opinion going into league play. What would you say as a fan would be your best case scenario? Like, obviously undefeated, you're happy and stuff, and your worst. Like, I want to know, where are you starting to hit the panic button if this team's record is after going through that preseason schedule?
Sure. I mean, as you allude to, of course, you want undefeated non-con, but college basketball is crazy night in and night out, so that's probably not the case. I'd say best case, like realistically, that's one loss. To be honest, like Duke, they're a young team. That's Shire's first matchup with a big school, non-coach K-led Duke. Indiana, they've got real good big man play, which is a question mark for KU right now. So, I don't think that's a long-term concern, perhaps, but especially in preseason, with some seasoned big men for Indiana, that could be an issue. And then you've got that Bahamas Battle for Atlantis tournament, which is 2-3 games in as many days, and you got some real heavy hitters in there. Tennessee is the team there that could really do some damage. Yeah, and they're usually tough, hard-nosed teams. I know they've got some new additions as well, but they usually play some tough physical ball, which I'm going back to the big men could be, I think they need some seasoning. Yeah. So panic button for me would be, 5 losses, but I really don't see that happening. Like, and I read this on a message board. It was really good. Winning a national championship's the ultimate pressure release valve for a fan base. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be like the sky is falling, and I think everyone will be a little bit more patient with what happened, especially knowing how many newcomers we have this year.
So yeah, there's patience, but but that patience doesn't last very long, right? So I guess my question then is kind of along those same lines. What would be the if they finish, which I don't expect this, but let's say they finish 3rd in the Big 12, and they are a first weekend, in the NCAA tournament. Are you playing with house money because of that national championship, or are you are you hurting again? You know what I mean? Like, is that summer just miserable for you? You think, if it's an outcome like that?
Yeah, of course it'll hurt. Now I'm speaking where instead of being
the glow,
right? But right. Yeah, I think this thing will come off. Like, teams don't win back-to-back titles very often. What was the last team? Florida. And what was that, 2006, 2007, before, Mario's miracle shot there. So it just doesn't happen that much. It's hard, as Bill Self said after he won in New Orleans. These don't grow on trees. So right. I think you'll eat the pain, but the ending of the season, you probably won't see Jalen Wilson again. And then it's just long. It's a way longer summer without college basketball, and signifies the ending of, my favorite and all KU fans' favorite time of year. So it would be sad. But with that being said, I do think because of the championship, the sting would be far less. Where in the past, I feel like they really did snowball. You thought of like the VCUs, the Michigans, the Oregons, the Villanovas, like it's just like one after the other. Where now you're on top of that mountaintop, and it takes a little more to roll you down.
I feel a little bit of that just like watching and listening to fans talk about it and everything, but I don't buy it. I think as soon as this season gets started and like, it's preseason. So I think people still are kind of not fully committed and invested in this new season. The second that people are invested in this team and Ochai and all of them are, kind of in the past, I'm telling you what, those losses are going to be bigger and everything's going to be more significant. And as a Kansas fan base that expects greatness every single year, if it's not great again, yes, it's nice. And knowing that you banked another championship, is great, not only for Coach Self, because now he has that kind of like, okay, you only have one, off his back. He now has two. And, we are that reigning champion. We can go with that. Still, I believe that as a KU fan base, and as players and coaches and stuff, as you get deeper into the season, that's going to start to be, hey, that was that team. This is a brand new team, and you're going to get connected as a fan, as a coach, as a player to this season, and those expectations are going to keep going up, and those losses are going to be more and more significant. So I'll tell you now, that's the way that this season is going to be as the season goes on, at least in my opinion.
100%. And as a player, I assume you want that, right? From your fan base, from your staff, from your team. You really want to turn the page for the purpose of playing where your feet are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, you want that. You want to have your own identity as well. And I think it is something that, when you have a team that really has two guys returning that have played significant minutes on that national championship team, there's a lot of guys that are going to want to come in and make their own name for themselves, be a part of something, big for themselves. I know when I was coming in, those early teams I played on, if they were to go and win a national championship, to say my redshirt year with Jeff Withy in them, or my freshman year with, Joel and Andrew, if that would have been the national champion year, I would have felt like I was a part of it, but not to the same level as it was my sophomore through senior year, where I was making a bigger impact on that team. And I expect the same from those players. My last question to you before we let you go, because we got to wrap this episode up. But if you had to just right now make a projection for this season, I want a Big 12 finish and a NCAA tournament finish. What would you go with, just based off of what you're hearing out of, the reports of practices, what you saw maybe at late night, and what you expect from, those newcomers mixing with the returning guys?
Sure. Big 12 is going to be tough. I mean, I think Baylor will be really good again. Texas, we hear that a lot, though, and they often don't live up to those expectations. I'm saying Big 12. I say Kansas will win the Big 12.
Love it.
I'm going to believe that. Don't.
This is from the stands. It's a fan, so we expect that,
Realistically, I do think this team will be a 2 seed, 2-3 seed. I think that's very doable.
I'll tell you one thing: if you win the Big 12, you're not going to be a 2 or 3 seed. You're going to be a 1 seed all day in this conference.
Fair point. So, so I think they're going to be a win by the Big 12. If you go by that logic, then a 1 seed. But I'll take a step back. I'll say a 2 seed and a Final Four berth, and we'll hold it from there, because there's a lot of good teams this year. Well, let's see. Kansas has wing depth. McCullough is going to be a good addition. Mm-hmm. They've got newcomers, but they're a little older as well. And I think we're going to be talking about, like last year, the 5 spot. I really do. And there was trouble with that all season last year, and look what happened in the end. David against Villanova, and the last 2 buckets to win the national championship. Mm-hmm. So if we can really get some stable play there and get what Bill Self likes to do, I think the sky's the limit again this year.
Well, I'm curious to check back in with you about halfway through the season and see where you're at, because it's going to be an up and down.
They're going to be last place. They're not even going to get an invitation to this.
Question for you, like with the big men, like they're not being really a set piece for that position. And this is kind of similar to many of your years at KU, correct? What is Coach Self looking for one of these guys to really do and separate themselves to get that starting spot?
That's a good question. And really, I think it's going to be just how they fit into this team. You're going to have a lot of younger guys in that role, and they're going to just have to make the guys around them better. I don't think he's going to be relying on any of them right out the gate and anytime soon to be putting up huge numbers and whatnot. It's just about how you're understanding the offense, how you're understanding the defense, and then the little things, just like, are you in the right spot at the right time? Are you setting the correct screen on the right play? And all those small things are going to add up. And how you compliment those guys like a Jalen Wilson is going to be huge, because if he's feeling you, that's going to go a long way in getting more playing time. And so I think, something I always try to do, especially, like my sophomore year and junior year early on when I was trying to establish myself, is build that, connection with those guys who are the leaders of the team at the time, and the guys who are going to be doing a lot of the scoring and making a big impact on the team, and just trying to see how I can help them be their best, because I know that that's going to help the team overall. And if you do that, your confidence will grow because you'll have more trust from Coach Self. And if you do those little things, they'll allow you to just get more time on the court. And something I always talked to my dad about was like just getting onto the court, getting that time in a Coach Self offense, where, you're going to score those easy buckets from drop-offs or seals. You're going to have rebounds start coming to you. All that comes along with just getting that playing time and establishing that trust from Coach Self. So that would be my answer. Dad, I'll ask you as well, because, you have seen it through me, and then also your time, playing and coaching. So what would you say these bigs need to do?
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than you did, to be honest with you. It's really, when you're dealing with Coach Self, who understands that position and has a system. And the thing is that, he may stray from it slightly, but there's still a certain way he wants to play. He wants to play through those bigs inside. And that's just the way he does things. One of the appeals, right? And then when we were looking at potentially even going there, it was the fact that man loves when that ball goes inside. But if you don't know how to be where you're supposed to be, if you're not a team player, and if you're not listening and doing the things you need to do in practice to get yourself ready, then you're not going to play. So yeah, you nailed it. It's, but if you do those things, you'll get rewarded with plenty of playing time, and the game will come to you.
And I'll say that early on is going to be tough. I don't see anybody running out, straight out the gates with it, because he is going to want to just see, hey, who am I going to get the most from? And with that comes a little bit of looking over your shoulder from every single guy, because nobody's going to come out the gate with full confidence from Coach Self. So it's going to take some mental toughness from those guys, young guys, who are going to have to deal with that early on, because nobody's going to come out the gate with full trust. He's going to try all kinds of different rotations. He's going to try all kinds of different subs throughout the game. And you're going to have to be comfortable with that and know that you're building towards the second half of the season, and just showing in those limited minutes that you get, hey, you can trust me, because it's not going to be everything you may be wanting as a McDonald's All-American or as a, great high school player to come in and like maybe expect to have that trust and stuff right off the bat. I can guarantee you that it would be very slim chances that anybody, gets that trust. And so you're going to have to battle through it. But if you do so and show enough, there's going to be somebody who emerges through the second half of the season. Coach Self always likes to settle on something. And if you become that guy that he settles on, you'll have all the trust and confidence in the world to execute your job.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for coming on. We appreciate it. We appreciate having you on. We'll check back in with you, as the season gets going, and kind of get your thoughts on on where you see the team after, seeing those first few games and seeing these new guys in action. But we appreciate your time and your thoughts on this season.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm flying out for the regular season opener Monday, and I
Nice.
that banner with my own 2 eyes. So I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. Well, enjoy that.
Thanks both. Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk too. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up. I don't think we went too long. What did we do? Like an hour or something like that?
I mean, you have to remember this is the first show. So we had to do, you know what I mean? We had to, there's a lot to fill. Also, hold on, let me put my.
Oh my goodness.
So
you're gonna scare all the kids off. God, that's so bad. I can't buy it at all. But well, enjoy your Halloween. Enjoy this week. We got college basketball coming back.
Yes.
Kansas fans, they've been waiting for this, new season. Hopefully go back to back. That would be massive. I think that they have a long uphill battle to do so. But you got Coach Self. You got the greatest venue in the world, in my opinion, but definitely in college basketball. This right here, this piece that I got made, that's Allen Fieldhouse, by the way, if you didn't know.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a wood.
Which part though? It wasn't like outside the restroom or anything, right? I mean, it's like.
What are you talking about? It's the whole. It's the above. No. It's not like actually a piece of Allen Fieldhouse. It is made. It was made to like replicate Allen Fieldhouse out of wood.
I see. Okay.
No. I wish it was a piece of Allen Fieldhouse.
That's what I was wondering. I didn't know if they had got a new floor and they just.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I need to call them and see if I could get something like that.
Yeah, there you go. The one thing I will tell you is that remember, Glue Guys starts. They win a national championship.
Yeah.
So
100%.
If in year 2 they somehow go back to back, right? Then yes, then we have
NIL. We should.
There you go.
We got to get something for that, Coach. We'll talk to Coach Self because if we go 2 for 2, I mean, I think it's a given, right?
I think it's a given for sure.
All right. Well, I'm excited for this season. I'm excited to get started, start watching this team a little bit more and get to know these new guys. I mean, we're going to have some guys on this season, on the Glue Guys that we have, last season we got some guys I played with and we knew and stuff. This is going to be a whole new bunch of guys. And I'm really excited to see, how Coach Self manages and turns this team hopefully into another contender. But we'll get to do it together with you guys every week. Make sure that you guys are liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff and sharing this. We really do appreciate the support that we got towards the end of last season. I know having Coach Self on kind of helped that a little bit.
Helps a lot.
But hopefully we can retain some of those viewers and get some of you guys to jump on board because we're here. We're going to be here every week breaking down what our thoughts are on the season and Kansas basketball and bringing you guys the best show we possibly can. So
no question. I can say, the comments are great. So, if you obviously subscribe, follow, but also leave those comments because, this is a show that we're just kind of putting together, mainly Landon doing all the work. But, it's nice to know what your thoughts are and if there's a certain guest that you want to see or if
you thought that whole Halloween act was corny and you need to cut it out, let us know.
Say that if you want, but I'm telling you, it was funny, especially because I just came on with anyway. Okay, so if it's corny, just let me know. Then I won't do it again.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it. That's a wrap for episode 1, and we will be back with you guys after a few exhibition games and I believe maybe even the first game of the season to break down our thoughts and talk to you guys some more. Thanks for listening.